I'm Lise Keeker, a longtime studio owner turned founder here at Studio Grow. Just a few years ago, I was building my studios the hard way. So I didn't have the team, the budget, or most importantly, the time. Now, if you speed up to today, I sold my wildly profitable studios in the mid 7 figures while serving my community in ways I could have only dreamed. Now I work with thousands of boutique fitness studio owners in over 40 countries, and I am so blessed to share some of the best tested strategies for our industry every single week. I created this podcast so you'd always have clear, actionable processes, tried and tested advice, and just some good old-fashioned inspiration. So you can take steps to grow your studio and turn it into a powerhouse empire just like I did. If you're a studio owner who's ready to impact your community and see major growth in the process, or you're prepping to become one, then you're in the right place. So let's kick this off, shall we?
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Business of Boutique Fitness, where we help business owners build scalable and profitable and sustainable businesses. My name is Matt. I work with Studio Grow in the Start Your Studio Profitably team. And I am so excited because my favorite podcast buddy is here today, Conor.
Hi, Matt. My name's Conor. I'm the pricing team captain for Studio Grow, and then I'm also one of the consultants within Grow Your Studio Profitably. And Matt, I feel like I've said this for every episode we do together, but I love this topic. We're talking about the 5 must-know metrics for driving studio success.
We always end up on our favorite topics together.
Because we have the same brain. We want the numbers. We want to talk about the data-driven strategies to help you grow, and we are two of the people that Studio Grow will turn to do that.
Yes. So we're very fortunate to have our incredible director here sitting behind the camera who is going to make sure that if we go off track or we keep talking about more and more things, that we're going to get reeled in, because we could definitely talk for a very long time about this. So, Conor, what I love about this is that, like you said, we both love data. So when we were prepping for this podcast, we kind of stepped away and we said, let's do this separately and come up with what each of our top 5s are. And it's very validating that we aligned on a lot of those things. So we're going to stick to our 5 key ones. We're going to talk through each of them, but then we know we can't help ourselves. So I'm sure at the end, there'll be a few bonus extras.
I'm sure there will. Sorry, director.
Okay, so what was your number 1, Conor?
Biggest one I'm going to talk about is capacity utilization. It is not just the number of bodies you have per class, but what percentage full you are, because I feel like that gives you a more accurate benchmark to understand what we're looking for. Because yoga studio that has 50 plus spots and a small Pilates studio that has 5, my benchmark is going to be the same. I look for 70. I also want 80% utilization. 80% utilization across the board tells me that your peak class times are full, you're cooking, you're cranking, but then your Tuesday at 12 p.m.s that you just have to run are there and doing A-okay. So 70 to 80% utilization across the board is my benchmark.
Yeah, and I go for 80% too, unsurprisingly. However, I do let all of my clients know that 70% is a really, really strong. So let me ask you a question, which I'm sure a lot of the listeners will be thinking at this point. Why would we not be going for 100% utilization?
Look, I want you at 100% utilization. I think that is a lovely dream goal. But it's not always possible. For bigger studios, you're going to have people who no-show, and you're going to have people on your wait list who don't show up. So I say that a peak class time at a really profitable studio, you might only see 90 to 95% utilization because you're going to have some of those no-shows and that standby and wait list not make it off. So that's A-okay. So that's kind of why it's never going to be at 100%.
Yeah, and for me, I always want an inflow of new clients coming in. I always want to be selling memberships. I'm replacing my churn. That's really, really important to me. So if all of my classes are sitting at 100% utilization and I sell you a membership today, you're not going to be able to book into class for a week. And that's going to be a terrible onboarding experience to kick off the member journey. So you have to have some breathing room to allow your business to continue to grow and cater to those new clients.
Exactly. I mean, this is like simple, most basic economics, but supply and demand.
Yeah.
If your demand is at 100%, you need to increase supply so you have room for those new people to come in.
Absolutely. And this is going to be your number 1 indicator of demand. not just generally across the board, but in terms of what classes are going well, what's working on your schedule, what particular class styles are really popping off, and how are you servicing the demand within your client base?
Exactly. And for those advanced clients, I want to take this to the next level because this is something I do with my clients every quarter, because we can just look at broad utilization, all class times, all instructors. I like to put it on one spreadsheet and then I start splitting it off. And I'm going to start comparing utilizations by day, by time, by instructor, and by modality. And that's going to be something that really helps me guide my clients into, maybe it's the mat Pilates classes that are consistently at 90% full, but yoga classes are at 20% utilization. So maybe I'm going to start judging there. It also gives you a good starting off point to be talking to your instructors. Matt, if your utilization across the board is 85% as an instructor, but mine's 45%, well, then I think our owner/manager is going to be having a conversation with me about why my utilization is on the lower side. So this is one metric I do want to take to the next level and compare all those variables.
Absolutely. And I think you and I thrive doing that sort of thing. But at a very high level, if you're not someone who's overly confident in that sort of thing or loves running all of those numbers, this is a broad sweeping statement, but I would argue at a high level that if your utilization is not at that 70% benchmark that we just talked about, you likely don't have a sales problem. You likely have a scheduling problem. Okay, so let's start there. Let's do that analytics and let's make sure that we don't have too much fat on our schedule and that we're diluting the client base that we have across too many classes in the week.
Exactly. And when I start seeing utilization that isn't where I want it to be, I ask myself a couple questions because yes, the easiest solution is let's cut that class, but sometimes it's a Tuesday night at 6 p.m. I'm not going to cut that class. That's peak time. So I start thinking about, is it the right time? Maybe 6 p.m. is the wrong time, but let's talk about 4 p.m. Maybe your kids get off school at 3:30 and a bunch of people can make it to class by 4:15. So just judging the time, up or back, 15, 30 minutes can help. Maybe it's changing the modality. Again, is mat Pilates outperforming your yoga? Maybe we put a mat Pilates class there to really drive attendance. And then again, maybe we talk about changing the instructor. There are morning people and there are evening people. And I see instructors who thrive with the morning crowd and then can't bring people in the evening and vice versa. So those are the things I want you to examine before you start thinking about just cutting classes.
Yeah. Any instructor who can get me there in the morning though, they're onto it.
No one.
Yeah, because I am not. I'm an afternoon, evening worker-outerer. So
there we go.
There you go. So, okay, let's move on to our second one. And I'm sure people are probably surprised that we didn't start off with this one because it's the most obvious, but it's our monthly recurring revenue.
Yes. Is there a benchmark you have in mind?
I mean, it's going to be so different for every single studio, regardless of, every single factor plays into this. But what I really use this one for, beyond anything else, is this is my stability metric. Okay, so this is the one that's indicating to me how sustainably profitable I am, my longevity of my business, and this is the one that's kind of going to help me sleep a little bit better at night.
Yeah.
This is also one that is so fascinating to me because 1 out of every 10 boutique group fitness studios is not what we would call sustainably profitable. So if we can nail this one, then we are already doing better than 90% of the competition out there.
Exactly. And I think it comes down to your business model. It comes down to your pricing model and your sales process. There's kind of a hierarchy of what your clients are going to buy. And if you're a studio that sells a lot of drop-ins or sells a lot of 10 packs, those are people who aren't buying memberships. And again, we want clients on those auto pay memberships. The benchmark I want to have in mind for studios that have been open for a little bit, you're through the pre-sale process, is in a perfect world, you're working towards 70% of your monthly revenue coming from those auto pays. Just like Matt said, that's your peace of mind at night. That's your accounts receivable. I know that I have X number of dollars coming in next month and I'm going to keep pushing, but I'm going to pay my rent, I'm going to pay my mortgage, and I'm going to pay my staff. And that just helps you sleep easy.
Yeah. And we talk a lot about the 30-30-30-10 principle in terms of how we divide up the whole financial pie of our studio. And that's 30% going on operating expenses like your lease, your utilities, your CRM costs, all that kind of stuff. 30% going on your labor costs, and then 30% being your profit margin.
Yep.
Then you've got that 10% that you can kind of filter on a seasonal basis or, depending on where it's needed in. Hopefully it's towards your profits.
Yes, please.
if you are consistently hitting that 30% revenue target, then what you're doing is you're cutting out those peaks and valleys month to month in terms of your money. And the smoother they can be, the more predictable it is. That's going to be a direct influencer of your multiple in terms of the value of your business.
Yep.
And it's really going to define the difference between just being a single studio that you love and it's your hobby and it's great versus having a sustainable, scaling, attractive business.
Yeah. All right. Look, we could talk about this one for ages because it probably is one of the most important, but let's talk about another one. The next one for me is lead conversion rate. What's lead conversion rate?
So it's basically just how well you turn the interest in your studio into revenue for your studio.
Oh, I love when you put it that way.
Yeah. So it's essentially how much is it going to take and what are you doing in order to convert the highest number of people who express an interest in you onto a membership or a pack or in some way giving you money.
Yeah, you summed it up. How many of your leads are buying an intro offer? And I think there are a couple questions you can start asking there. Again, benchmark, because I like benchmarks to work off of, is in a perfect world, we're working you towards 35% of your leads purchase intro offers. And to me, a lead is a name, an email, and a phone number in your CRM who you can market to. They are people that you can actively be engaging with, and I want you to be following up with them to purchase that intro offer. And sometimes I go with clients and we pull that number and it's like 12% or something. But what we start seeing is that the quality of leads you're getting is low. Sometimes the leads you're getting off of like a meta campaign are just robots. Robots are not going to come and take yoga. So I want you to know that it's quality leads and intro offers sold. And that's going to be something that is going to shift that number ever so slightly.
And I feel like this is a conversation I have all the time with my clients where I say to them, you don't need more leads. You need to convert more leads. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
Because if your conversion strategy is on point and you're able to get this conversion rate up, you simply don't need as many leads. Right? If you can convert 80% of 100 leads, that's 80 new members. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Now, an 80% conversion rate is ridiculous. I'm using this to just demonstrate my point. But if you have 100 leads, but your conversion is at 10%, it's only going to be 10. That's a difference between 80 new members and 10 new members.
Yeah.
Now, if you can bridge that gap, you can really clearly see the impact that conversion rate will translate to on your bottom line.
Yeah. Love it. All right. Retention rate.
Did we just do a quick one?
We did. We did.
You and I just talked through a quick
It's crazy.
point.
It's crazy.
There's a first time for
I had to cut you off because I was just going to keep going too.
You guys are witnessing history here. Let's keep this going. Okay, so retention rate. You want to talk about that one next?
Yeah.
I love this one.
I like retention rate because it's going to be a measure of how long you're keeping someone. And for me, you can call it retention rate. I sometimes think about it as attrition. Attrition is the number of memberships you lose every single month. And a little bit of math, but this is going to be really helpful for you, is what I do with that number is, let's say, I'm going to do some math off the top of my head. It's going to be bad.
This will be good.
Let's say your attrition rate is 5%. What I do with that number is I take 1 divided by 5%, and that tells me the average client lifetime length. That tells me how many months I have someone and how many payments I get out of them. So at 5%, 1 divided by 5% is 20. So I get an average of 20 payments out of a client. And this is really good information to have because the lower that attrition number is, the higher the average client lifetime length is, and the higher average client lifetime value is. So lots of numbers, lots of big complicated acronyms, but less people leave your studio, they stay with you longer and you make more money.
Exactly. And retention is really just going to be your profit multiplier, right?
That's a much easier way to put it.
So you can use the numbers to articulate this point, and I'll use the words.
Yes.
It's your profit multiplier. So every client is bringing in you profit, and the longer they stay, the more they're multiplying how much profit they're giving you. And I always like to say that retention is really just going to be your cheapest marketing strategy that you can have, because we know that it's anywhere from 5 to 8 times cheaper to keep a client than it is to acquire a new one.
Wait. One more time, because that was a good one.
Yeah, so it's going to be 5 to 8 times. Let me phrase it a different way. You're going to spend 5 to 8 times more to get a new client than you are to keep an existing one that you've already got in your studio.
Boom. I got nothing else.
Oh my gosh, we're on a roll. Let's keep this going. Okay.
We're
next
making the
one.
director happy right now.
Yeah, the fifth key metric that we want to talk about today before we dive into our bonus extras really quickly, we promise, payroll percentage. Now, labor is going to be one of, if not arguably, our most material line item on our P&L every single month.
Yeah.
So this is really going to be the expense that makes or breaks you. So
Yeah.
we're kind of flipping from the profit side, the revenue side of things now in terms of key metrics to the expense side.
Yeah.
And this one is a doozy.
Yeah. I think so. It's a doozy because this is where most of your money is going to go, hopefully, after your rent. If your rent is that expensive, let's have a conversation. 40% is the number I keep in mind as the ceiling. Mm-hmm. If you do payroll costs, and I want to talk specifically about instructor costs first, because I'm going to put your front desk and your manager and your admin under overhead. It is between 30 and 40% allocated to your cost of goods sold, your instructor pay. 30%, I'm a happy camper. 40%, again, is the ceiling. And then it can get pushed to 50% for really boutique small group training modalities and private instruction, because again, it just costs more to run those. But that 35 to 40% is the sweet spot for how much you should be paying out in instructor payroll.
Yeah. And I often say that studios don't fail because they lack revenue. They fail because their expenses are eating their revenue.
100%. The amount of studios, I'm thinking of one in particular that I loved working with, they were making close to $20,000 per week printing money, but they were hemorrhaging money in terms of expenses. And I love doing an expense deep dive because as much as I want to drive more leads, I want to drive more memberships, that takes a little bit of time. If I can save you money on a bill, if I can save you money on payroll by making some strong strategic choices, those are immediate wins. That's money back in your pocket at the end of this month.
Yeah. And when we talk about expenses, there are going to be the vast majority of which are outside of your control.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, you can try to renegotiate your lease and pay some cheaper rent, but I mean, the utilities companies are not just going to, discount your rate.
No.
There are certain things that are just going to be, you got to suck it up, right? But labor is going to be your largest, most controllable expense that you have there.
Yep.
And there are strategies that you can put in place to control it. Like we said earlier, Conor, looking at scheduling and trying to optimize the efficiency of that is a great one.
Yeah.
Being strategic around how you can utilize bonuses and incentives with your instructors. So decreasing the base rate that they pay or that they earn per class, but instead incentivizing them to earn more through attracting more people into class.
Yeah.
That can be a great way to protect your baseline labor costs. There's so many different things that you can do.
Yeah, again, this one is even tied into that utilization conversation we started with. If there are classes that aren't filling up and you're paying an instructor, and I've seen this number, but $75, $85 for a class that has 6 people in it, again, you're just losing money there. Let's judge the time, let's judge the modality, the instructor, but pay close attention to your payroll margin because Matt said it. You can't really control all of your expenses, but payroll is one that you have the most direct control over.
Yeah, and you should understand what your break even is per class. So at a very high level, that's taking what the core rate per attendee is across your entire client base, the average that you pay an instructor to teach a class and comparing those two numbers. So say, for example, your core rate is $20 that someone's paying to take a class. On average, you pay an instructor $80 a class. Like you said, you're going to need 4 people in that class just to cover the instructor's costs.
That's not even counting your rent and your insurance and your music licensing.
So you need to add another 30 or 40% on top of that in order to break even.
Yeah.
So let's say at a high level, we're looking at 120, right? To be conservative, that instead is going to be 6 clients in that class that you need to break even. So you're not making any money until you've got that 7th head in there. And that's a really good starting point to analyze your schedule at a very high level and going who's below that 7 and who's consistently above that 7.
I love it. Matt, you're already moving us into the bonus metrics. So let me throw out one more as well that we've kind of talked about. But in general, the more specific we get, we're really just talking about your unit economics. Mm-hmm. How much money does it cost to run your class per head, and how much money are you making per head per class? Mm-hmm. But one of the most important measures of your unit economics that I care about is your customer acquisition cost. So that is the cost not just to acquire a lead, because leads are great, but I want to know how much does it cost for you to get a membership? And so you calculate that by taking your quarter or your month's worth of membership spend and dividing it by the number of members you got. So let's say you spent $1,000 on labor and your meta ads and all that fun stuff, and you got 10 memberships. 1,000 divided by 10 is $100 for your customer acquisition cost. That's really important because I use that to drive all of the strategic decisions moving forward, because I know it costs $100 for me to get a new member. That's not cheap. So I want to make sure that the offers I have to bring people in are less expensive than that. So no matter what I'm doing, I'm making money by bringing members in, and I'm not losing money to get people through the door.
For sure. And I think when it comes to cost per lead as well, there are absolutely ways that you can influence this figure and get it lower. So, for example, if you're just acquiring the vast majority of your leads through Meta campaigns, firstly, good on you for using Meta. That is a good thing and something that we want. We want to be hitting a benchmark there in an ideal world of anywhere between $10 to $20 for a cost per lead that's coming through Meta. However, if our conversion rates are on the lower end, like we just said, that's going to become expensive to acquire those leads through that channel. So let's look outside of Meta. And I cannot stress enough the importance of grassroots marketing here, community engagement.
That's a whole nother podcast. That's like 3 other podcasts.
Thanks for keeping me in line, Conor. I will steer right back on track with that one. But yeah, I mean, in terms of other bonuses, there's so many important metrics here. Like we've said, we could go on and on about them. The average revenue per member, the intro offer conversion more specifically. There's a whole bunch. But we will save them for another episode of a podcast.
Yeah.
And I think we've done some good work here.
We did. So before we wrap up, because KPIs are hard, metrics are tough. If you were meeting with a new client today, you know nothing about them, you know nothing about their studio, what's the one metric you want them to be tracking so that you can understand how the business is doing?
Ooh, I really don't know if I can narrow it down to one, but I will try. Okay, you're holding a gun to my head. I'm just going to give you one. For me, it's going to be the utilizations.
Interesting. That's not the one I was going to pick.
It's going to be the utilization because I feel like I can determine from that where the client base should be based off the schedule. I can determine the gaps in the schedule. I can then
you can determine revenue. Utilization is going to be a proxy for revenue.
I can determine labor costs based off my utilization. Probably not fully, but like this is going to start dipping my finger in all the pies. What's yours?
You just kind of blew my mind because I wasn't thinking about that one, but I'm like, wow, there's a lot of information there. Mine is a two-parter because it's your sales process.
Hey, I did one. You have to do one.
I get 2.
Okay.
It is your lead to intro and your intro to membership conversion. That is the first thing I ask a studio owner when I'm sitting down with them to do a diagnostic and just lay all the cards on the table and understand where things are. I want to know, is your intro offer working? And are your clients buying memberships off of it? Everything else falls downstream from that. That tells me if your top line revenue is growing. It tells me if clients are interested in your studio. It tells me about the quality of your lead, the quality of your memberships. Again, there's just so much meat within those 2 numbers that, yes, they're important separate, but it is that journey that will make or break your studio. So if you were tracking your lead to intro and intro to membership conversion accurately, I'm a happy camper.
You know what? It makes so much sense that we would both pick those though, because you primarily work with studios whose doors are open and they're functioning and they're either looking to fix problems or continue to overperform. And then I'm primarily working with studios who haven't yet opened. So it makes sense that we would look at it from those perspectives. But thank you for your insights, Conor. Always a pleasure.
Matt, it's always a good time chatting with you. I hope we did not run too far over time, but thank you so much for listening to us chat about some of the metrics that are near and dear to Matt and I's hearts. For any more resources, related episodes, head to studiogroww.co and please drop in the comments what your favorite metric is. Let's get a little nerdy between Matt and I. But thank you so much for listening.
We can't wait to see you next time on the Business Boutique Fitness.